What a hell of a segue from marriage to school violence. I wanted to thank you all for coming this evening and allowing us to share some time with you. My name is Paul Privateer, and this is Ben Meredith, and we represent an organization, a 501c3, a federal nonprofit called No School Violence. And we're a social science, behavioral science, and data science research organization committed to reducing school violence by essentially tapping big data in order to correlate a child's behavior to the types of violence that that child might necessarily express. I don't think we really have to sell that to you, because we know that on average there's between 2.2 and 2.5 million instances of fatal and non-fatal school violence annually in the United States. And there is, let's put it this way, there is more violence occurring per day than the amount of weapons a school can get in order to defend itself from a child. I'll say that one more time. There are more instances of violence occurring every day than there are guns that are being able to be purchased and used to fend off an attack of a kid at a school. So that means that the increase in school violence can never be essentially controlled or limited by essentially having more, making schools into citadels. Okay, so the answer has to come from something else. And so what we're trying to do is prevent it by essentially having teachers and parents and school site psychologists and principals and safety resource officers have the availability of being able to use our app. We call it the Lantern. And the app essentially allows them to make queries based on the behaviors they observed in a child and then the types of violence that correlate to those forms of behavior. And then once those violence types are identified, they can click on that violent term and then be access to gain access to a number of very viable intervention programs that they can share. So that what happens is when a parent launches a query, the school knows it. When one of the teachers launches a query, the parent knows it. All the children are protected. There's no names ever mentioned. We gather data with no names. And every time there's a query, it generates a separate term or an identity. So what I'd like to do is have Ben talk about sort of the machinery behind all of this.
How many data scientists do we have in here? Anybody? Okay, cool, great. You guys will figure out exactly what we're doing here. Google is great. Love Google. If you're from Google, good stuff. You got a heck of a database. But putting all of that data in front of humans in a research size or in a research opportunity is rather daunting. And it takes a lot of time. It's our belief that we don't have time for this problem to be solved. So from the data science side, which is where I come in, from the data science side, we are scraping Google and scraping the web, pulling everything that's ever been written about data science, using NLP, NLA, and NLU to extract out the correlations that other studies have found, and then using that whole data set to then extract out the correlations of what types of violence are associated with certain school activities, what types of things are going to be associated with violence, what are the launch pads. More importantly, for us, is not the launch pads to violence. It's the points of intervention to prevent the violence in the first place. And that's where the Lantern comes in. I really, because of time, I don't want to take up too much more time, but from our standpoint, we're still a few weeks out from launching the Lantern into the general public. At this point, I would say that we've been successful. Last November, and I'm going to tell the story, Paul. Last November, just before Thanksgiving, we received a call from, or an email, Paul received an email from a young lady in Indiana, Richmond, Indiana, who said to look at a particular video of a student that was in her school. She found our site on Facebook, our Facebook site. After we looked at the video, very violent-oriented video, get a hold of the safety officer at the school, at Richmond High School in Richmond, Indiana. Paul was the one who made the call. Safety officer John Green gets on the phone. Paul said, "I'm Dr. Paul Privateer from," and that's as far as he got. The safety officer said, "You're from No School Violence out in Seattle. We've been watching your stuff." He then went on to talk about how other safety officers in other states are bringing us in, and we had no idea about it. Paul translated what he had found and what had been told to him. Safety officer said, "Thank you very much. I've had that person on my radar. This gives me what I need to do." That's a success.
We even case studied every one of the major attacks in schools in the United States since 1999 with Columbine. We case studied those, and what we did was put the behavior of these kids in our query, and every time we added weapons use to the last term in the query, what popped up in all of the types of violence that would be weapons use. So there is definitely, if you will, a grammar of behaviors that lead to weapons use, and we've got that nailed. And we could use help from a lot of you, to be honest, in terms of data, and you can go into that. We're over time, we're apologizing.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't really quite understand how it works. It's amazing, but how does it actually work?
It's a behavioral intervention recommendation system. It's the Netflix recommendation system for behaviors. Rather than giving you the movie to watch, we put you, the individual, the teacher, safety officer, parent, puts into the app, here are the behaviors my kid is exhibiting. Your name is what? Osh. Osh, it gets put into the system. Yeah, it does not use any names, but the parents puts in, Osh has, over the last few weeks, stopped taking care of himself. The grades are going downhill, not doing very well. Broke up with his girlfriend, is not showering. And these are all factors, folks. And it comes back with a recommendation. These are the types of behaviors that either he is exhibiting or moving toward, or that may be influencing him. Interventions of the following.
That you might have bullying as a high priority, and then something else where you get more anger that goes from bullying to perhaps a higher weapons use potential, theft, stealing, drug use, gang use, et cetera, et cetera. So what you do is every time you enter a behavior that changes the profile of the type of violence, so then the teacher goes or the parent, they click on that type of violence, and it says, okay, here's a great intervention program from Sweden or from the University of Stockholm or from wherever that's really very pinpoint.
So really the parent of the Columbine shooter is expected
Susan
to
Klebold.
understand, be self-aware enough to be like, hey, this kid is possibly effed up.
Well, have you ever seen her interview on ABC's 2020 that you saw that you mentioned Susan Klebold? I met with her, and that's exactly what she said. She said, this happened over a period of time. I didn't see it coming. But then what she says after she says that was what started off with him becoming very antisocial. Then he used to have a lot of friends, then just one friend, and then In fact, she was laying out a behavioral stream. But she didn't know that. But we've traced that. I've sat there and listened to that program and wrote that down and then hit the queries, and then you follow exactly the kind of violence that's in their notebooks. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a little confused because you said that you don't tie queries to children at the same time as a teacher runs a query on a child and notifies the parent.
Yeah.
There is a community opportunity. There's a community opportunity within. From our side, we don't see what child this is. It's encrypted. There's a key. That goes to the community of that child. The parent says, I want to opt into this. These are the people that I want to also opt into it. They are then given the community around the child so that each of those adults has the ability to put in their own observations. And those observations, as we were just talking about, then begin to build a profile. Because what you see as a parent, once you become parents, if you already are one, What you see at home is very different from what they see in school, and vice versa.
So you can sign up as a parent, you just sign up at the beginning, I want to use the tool, and what school do they go to, here's your contact teacher, or here's the principal, and you create this private community. Nobody, no names. No, the database is essentially based on thousands and thousands of data records about behaviors that correlate to violence.
Yeah, we're not doing any profiling. Yes, sir.
Would this be reliant on the person entering in the behaviors they're seeing actually being knowledgeable of what behavior?
No, that's the purpose of it, is you are not, we in here, very few of us are qualified to say, these behaviors line up to,
No, I'm saying the behaviors that if I'm watching a child do something, I have to properly identify that.
Yeah, that's a good point that you're making. We have an encyclopedia online. So you can say, the kid is acting angry. Well, the minute you use the word angry, what pops up are 4 or 5 variations of what kinds of terms, like antisocial behavior, whatever. And then you simply say that and it gets logged in. Kyle, at the end of this, we can talk, okay? Because I think your question's really good. I think we can clarify.
do we have time? No. Yes, ma'am, one more.
Sorry.
Yes, where was the other nonprofit that said Seattle giving? No. We're funding this out of our pockets right now. We're looking for funding at the moment, and we have not secured that funding yet. We have approached a number of the big fish in this pond called Seattle, and we have received a lot of, yes, that's something that we want to get behind.
But to clarify that, we've got Google Azure, absolute access to all of,
Google.
Microsoft Azure, we've got Google Suite, we've got Ultrex, Elastic has given us a humanitarian award, has given us access to all of Elasticsearch and Kibana and all of that too. So we've got the tools, we just haven't gotten the money to hire the kinds of data scientists that we really need and behavioral specialists. Yeah. 2 years. I left Arizona State University, there's 2 of my students committed suicide within a matter of 6 months. And the college president said, oh, well, we can operate Arizona State University on the basis that as long as we get under 10% of our students are not suicidal, that's cool. That's just bullshit, that's not good enough.
If you are interested in helping, if you are a data scientist and you definitely want to get into deep NLP, come talk to us.
We're also making contact with a lot of Fortune 500 companies for educational support, so if you're interested, happy to talk about it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.